So I do want to start with the elephant in the room. And when I think about France, I think about engineering talent, I think about the pure math talent, and I think about creative talent. So as far as I'm concerned, that's the trifecta for success in tech and specifically in progress with AI. So I am going to ask our investor, Ed, why aren't more North American companies looking to France?
I think that North American companies are looking to France. I think that investors, venture investors in particular, have been French averse for years. And that is shifting, and we're seeing it shift because of the incredible position that that France has carved out for itself in AI, and also because France, and not just Paris, but Paris in particular, is just so irresistible as a place. But the venture aversion started years ago, and there are a couple of reasons for it. One is it is harder to fire people in France. I know that the laws were liberalized, but still, it's harder to fire people in France.
I almost want to stop you there and say, 2013, right, the laws were liberalized, but maybe people in the international community don't know that.
No, the liberalizations didn't go far enough, period, full stop. And also, there are venture investors.
See, Ed, that's how annoyed people are with your comment that they're setting off a fire alarm.
The French government really cares about this issue.
I know. I feel like very NSA.
So the French government intervened in a couple of transactions, and the venture world took note and said, so I had this conversation. I was at lunch at the Élysée Palace with President Hollande and Macron and some others, and it was like several venture investors and a group of people from the government, and we talked about why, for instance, there had been intervention to stop the sale of Dailymotion, and the French government said we wanted it in French hands. And then we talked about the innovation resistance regarding Uber, right, which was blocked from really being there. Lyft still isn't there, for instance. Those kinds of things sent a very strong signal, because if you're going to limit my opportunity to make money at exit, I'm not going to be part of the seed funding or the Series A funding of the companies there. That is changing, and I think that there have been some really positive steps that the French government has taken, and there are some amazing French champions that have arisen. It did create great opportunity for those of us who were undeterred and who believe strongly that talent is evenly distributed, and therefore there's a tremendous amount of talent, world-class talent in France. So that's why I kept investing in France.
Okay, I want to come back to that with a little bit more, because for the most part, many Anglos only speak English. And so I feel like you had to particularly have an open mind to be able to be there and have what I'll call a reading level of French, but not an easy spoken level.
I'm okay feeling stupid. That's the difference.
Okay. Okay. With that, I'm coming back on the patients and what you saw. Fabrice, out of curiosity, as a founder, I mean, what was the environment like in France for you versus Tel Aviv, Israel, versus UK? I mean, how do you see it as somebody who had to hire and maybe fire and had to grow and scale?
So first of all, we're not looking at the world through the lens of the country. We're looking at the world through the lens of the talents. We are in a market where what makes the difference is the talents that we can hire and who could contribute to our project. So each country has its advantage and disadvantage. France has some employment law, but once you understand the system, you know how to play with the system. US have also some.
You can tell Ed he just didn't read the fine print well enough.
Health insurance, for example, in the US, it's a mess. We just changed provider. Honestly, it's been 2 months of catastrophic discussion. It was a nightmare. So I think you need to understand the rules, but then in France, there are amazing talents that we can't find anywhere else. So for me, I can bear the burden of the local employment law if I can have the best talent in the world. That's as simple as that.
Frédéric, I'm curious from your perspective, what do you see as the biggest misconception? So we just heard from Fabrice that talent is key, right? Most important unit in the equation. Ed saying more or less the same thing, but how do you see it as someone who's in touch with and advising 2,000 companies a year?
I think still the biggest misconception is that 10 years ago when we launched the French Tech, everybody thought it was a brand name and that's it, just a marketing strategy. But at the end of the day, we built slowly, little by little, upon all our assets. And now the world is really realizing, and especially here in the US, I think, that we have built on our assets, we have built on the STEM's talent that we have in France. Our engineers are less expensive, more affordable, more disruptive, more reliable than what you can find anywhere else. The R&D tax incentive is not bad, both for startups and also for large groups. We have probably one of the most attractive ones in the world with the CIR, and this is not being touched at the moment by the budget law. The ecosystem of public-private financing with BPI France, with some other players and some other initiatives has been also instrumental in building this ecosystem. And we have, from the beginning, thought that this ecosystem should be very wide open to the world. So we are supporting a lot our French tech communities to come to the US, our French startups to come to the US. You mentioned 2,000 companies that we are in touch with every year. There's 1,500 from France to the US and around 500 from the US to France. So that shows that's a lot. That shows how open this ecosystem is. And now there's not even 1 week without a major announcement on both sides of the Atlantic of a cooperation. There was Mistral AI, 14 billion euros now, our market cap. In June, they signed with NVIDIA. Last week, there was Pascal. No, a few weeks ago, there was Pascal in the quantum computing that announced $65 million US investment in Chicago in the quantum ecosystem there. Anthropic has just announced last week it's the opening of its Paris office. So you see, the momentum is building up, and it's really live at the moment.
I want to ask you in a minute, what are the top 3 questions? I'll come back. Top 3 questions you get from North American companies about investing in France, and top 3 questions that you get from France, from French founders looking to come here. So I'm coming back to you at that. In the meantime, Fabrice, I want to ask you, so you recently made an acquisition, which is another one, I would say humanitics. In American English, humanétique, j'imagine. But in any case, when you think about scaling internationally, logic would have it that you would buy or pair with a company outside of France. But to help you scale, you bought in France. So what's the thinking behind that?
So so we have 2 tracks when it comes to growth: our organic growth track and acquisition. This was not an acquisition for growth, it was an acquisition for IP and algorithm. And we looked literally across the world at the best retail algorithm that could supercharge our application. We look at Israel, we look at the US. It happened that the best team was a team in France. So we haven't choose to say we want to pick an acquisition in France. We said we want to pick the best algorithm and where can we find this talent. And we have PhD from the CNRS, we have amazing engineer and AI expert that we haven't seen anywhere else to help us go to the next stage of growth for the company.
Which underscores what you first told us, which is talent is what you're looking for first and everything else falls under that. Frédéric, so top 3 questions that you get?
For US companies coming to France? I would say we don't have that many questions about the political current situation and what's going to happen.
Because you look calmer than we do, which is a good start.
I thought I would have more than that. But anyway, of course, there are some challenges. The budget will probably be passed in the next few weeks. We are learning a little bit of the hard way how to compromise in the government, but just think that in Spain, which is a country that is doing really well at the moment, they don't have budget voted by the government for 3 years now. So, okay. In terms of debt and deficit, same thing. Again, we are at a level of 110%, which is similar to every OECD country at the moment. So we have those questions, but I would say this is not the main thing. The second thing is there growth for the long term also in France, and that we look at what are the records for the past few years. At the moment, we have a macroeconomic situation that is quite good and stable, and we have around 1%, 1.2% in terms of growth, which is still higher than Germany or UK. 1% inflation, which is much lower than you have in the US. So the stable environment is also quite relevant. And the last one, depending on the companies, but at the moment we deal a lot with large companies for data centers and these kind of things, using a lot of energy. Then after the talents, the next big asset for France at the moment is the nuclear energy, the stability of the grid, the fact that we export still a lot of electricity. And I was in Canada and just came back this morning. I talked to an investor there, and he was amazed that we are the only country probably in Europe at the moment that is able to commit for 125 or 150 megawatt on the grid starting next year, and commit in the coming years on up to 1 gigawatt of electricity. So this will reinforce the position of France as the hub in Europe for artificial intelligence and all the different sectors of the tech in the future.
It makes sense. I even read something a few weeks ago in the Wall Street Journal about France and the nuclear power and how it is one place where you're not having the same arguments, at least that the US is having right now, about building data centers, the grid, who pays for it, how much debt is being issued and sold against that. I said I was going to come back about patience. You have been investing in France for more than 10 years. I know recently you have Ellen, which is one of the, let's call them unicorns, I think $4 billion on Macron's top 4 or top 20 list of unicorns. So in all seriousness, how did you begin to become, as somebody who grew up in Brooklyn, a good New Yorker, how did you begin to understand that France was the opportunity that it is?
So Brooklyn has to be one of the 10 largest French cities outside of France, right? It was not when I was growing up, but it's funny to see. My wife and I bought a place in France years ago, and now we see people wearing Brooklyn T-shirts all the time, which is wild. So yes, I was an early investor in Elan. And the group of people with whom I've been investing as an angel, a small group of very close friends for 20 years, I said, insurance. And I said, not only is it French, but they only want to stay in France. They don't want to expand beyond the French borders. And they all said, we're out, every single one of them. And I had already taken an allocation, assuming everyone was doing there. And I said, I guess I'll just take the whole thing. So I'm very appreciative that they are Francophobes, or at least were at the time. But I think, first, I was very welcomed into the tech and venture community, and I saw an incredible enthusiasm for what France was building. And I also I participated in a lot of the French tech events. I thought they were fantastic events, and there was commitment. And there was commitment at the highest level of government. I remember the advice people gave me, including people in the cabinet, when I was about to sit down with President Hollande and give him my 3 pointers. And they said, do not do that because he will not be okay with this. And so, of course, being from Brooklyn, I did it. And he said, this is a really good idea. And I was like, I thought he was a socialist. The guy gets venture capital. What's the deal? I'm not saying that, I'm not commenting on his skill as a president. I'm just saying there was tremendous enthusiasm. And there are a lot of companies a lot of startups that started in France, and some that we have a whole bunch of clients in France, French venture funds and French companies. And they've established that the company language will be English, which is kind of game changing. So for me, I think I'm the only one who's been on stage all day who doesn't really speak French, except when I'm underground in a wine cellar. And to be welcome in that way is really valuable. For the financing, I think what Americans, and particularly American venture investors, won't say is, we feel uncomfortable that we don't speak French, we don't understand the documents. The National Venture Capital Association in America created a set of model documents 20 years ago. I was part of writing those documents and revising them annually. And we like, ironically, that that's a lingua franca for venture deals in America, and we are very afraid of what we don't understand, and we don't like to feel stupid. So even though the lead partner on a deal might feel okay, the rest of the partners on the investment committee don't. And I think that's been something to overcome.
Yeah, I think anyone who grew up, myself included, in an Anglo world, sometimes we can be a little bit lazy, because schools don't push us to learn languages early, and then a lot of business is done in English, so we don't always push. From the founder's perspective, who's functioning in the UK, who's functioning in France, who's functioning in Israel, I'm curious if you could give us a 30,000-foot view on how you would describe the attitude towards being a founder in each of those 3 locations, and what you've noticed about the US.
So I think probably the most important thing is the ambition that I've learned, and the dreaming big is probably the thing that I've learned coming here in the US. You were asking one of the misconceptions. I think one of the misconceptions that I've heard is that French people are very good at creativity and at building, but not at scaling. I think this has changed. I don't think it has ever been true. I remember when I was 30 years ago in my engineering school, Bernard Liotto from Business Object came, and he was telling us his story in the US. That's probably one thing that have inspired me to come here in the US and start the business here. So sometimes I think we are sometimes a little bit shy in France to kind of embrace the opportunity of coming in the US. It's a complex market. It's a very different market from France. So you need to come very humble and to be ready to restart from scratch, like if you were restarting a new company. That was the mindset. I raised a significant amount of money. When I came here, I booked a very small office in a WeWork, and I wanted to restart the fire of creativity and building from scratch, and learning from my team, learning from the American that I hired here, and understand how they were looking at the world. And the difference is in the detail, but the difference is massive. So embracing the culture has been something very important for me coming here, and be very, I think, in a mindset of learning new stuff has been super important. In Israel, we are bold in our ambition. So the mindset is different, because I think Israelis have a very local market. So from day one, they have to go outside of the country. And the US has always been like the place for Israeli startup. So, and when we started, we are 3 brothers. We're working together for the past 30 years. One of us, my twin brother, is in Israel. My youngest brother is in London. So the working language was English, even if at the beginning it sounds a little bit stupid. We are all French. We were a small group of 5 people. But we wanted to have this global ambition from day one and set that in the DNA of the company. So the approach is a little bit different. You pick the good thing from every culture. That's what I've learned.
Number one surprise when you came to the US?
It's a very different market. If you think, from the outside, you think, okay, I've made it in Europe, like we had a decent side in Europe. Say, okay, I know how to drive business, to close deals, etc. It took us a year and a half to close the first deal in the US because I didn't get the culture, the pitch is different, the way you demo a product is very different. So you need to reset your expectation when you start.
Surprise to you, Ed, but on both sides of the water.
So I'm on the board of a Paris-based venture fund called 2050. The co-founders are Marie Eklund and Olivier Mathieu, who founded a very big winner in France. And Marie has a track record in 20 years of venture of returning 6 times the capital that she put out. In America, she would be a superstar.
I was going to say, yeah, that's a mic drop moment.
Yeah, and she runs marathons. She has a master's in math and comp. Like, she's a superstar. France doesn't have that culture, and America isn't really looking that much outside of our borders, which is crazy. So the opportunity set that you get and the lack of self-promotion. Like, I was able to invest in, I met Frédéric at BlaBlaCar years ago. I was able to invest in BlaBlaCar. In the States, you'd have to claw your way into that deal, and there is a real lack of self-promotion, which is great in France, and right now, tragically terrible in our White House, for instance.
Okay, I'm leaving politics aside.
I know you are.
Because we're just going to keep it moving. I would love to wrap on this rapid fire round. So from each of your perspectives, Frédéric, if you had a magic wand to help French tech scale faster, what would you change?
Magic wand. The only thing we lack, I think, at the moment, it has been quite some time we are working on it. It's progressing, but it's very slow. It's too slow in terms of progress, is to create a real European capital market. That will attract more US investors, more US funds, and that will help the French and the European companies to grow faster. That will really, this is, I think, the best reform we should take. It's progressing, but it's still a bit slow.
Okay, Fabrice, magic wand, changing one thing to help French companies scale faster.
I wouldn't say it's the capital. I think the capital is available, whether it's in Europe or outside of Europe. And as a funder, you want to pick a venture capital that will help you. I think it's a mindset and being ambitious about the potential of the technology you're building. The market here is unlimited. It's massive. So that would be the mindset, bring this US mindset in the French funder tech environment. And this is coming. Like, you can't imagine how many French funder I'm meeting like every month. And the appetite, young people just out fresh of college, and the appetite to eat the world and to conquer the US is massive. And we have example of people who have succeeded. So that's also an aspiration for each of us.
And there's no market B. They all come to the US, in fact.
Well, I was thinking with Ed's Brooklyn comments, there's such a heavy concentration of French people in San Francisco, Silicon Valley as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've also angel invested in, and we are counsel to, numerous companies that I think of as part of the French diaspora in San Francisco and in New York in particular. And I think a thing that, and I know this won't happen, but BPI could, for instance, take successful French entrepreneurs in the States and give them seed capital to deploy in the States, because one of there's something about the way networks get built, and we can talk offline about the structural stuff with the French venture system, but I do think drawing more investors to France, not requiring them to invest in France, drawing them there and building out the French networks of American investors and UK investors has real value.
Fabrice, what is, if other founders come to you and say, I want to go to the US or I want to explore building in the US, what is, and they say, tell me the most important thing, what is it?
The most important thing for me is you need to be committed and to go all in. If you come with hesitation, the market is tough, the competition is tough, you will go back to France in few months or a year after burning a lot of money. So dedication, commitment. If you're not ready to do the move and move here with your family, don't do it. You're going to burn a ton of money and you will go nowhere. So it's a commitment.
Frédéric, you're nodding your head.
And maybe to understand that and to realize that, of course, talk to guys like you, but also talk to the whole ecosystem. We are very fortunate because there's, of course, business friends, but there are the French diplomatic department, the embassy, the consulate, the French trade advisors. We have 10 or 12 French tech communities, the chambers of commerce, etc. They all work together with the whole ecosystem, and of course, French founders and BNP Paribas that are our host today. So all that is a fantastic network for which you can really leverage upon to make sure that you understand how it works here. And frankly, it's not easy because I spent 17 years in different Asian countries. When I arrived in the US, I thought that I need to relearn everything, basically. And I think that's the same for all our founders that came here. That's why also on all our programs of acceleration, etc., for the French startups, the most important thing is to help them to understand all the multicultural aspects and to make them to think how to succeed in the US without, of course, losing their French DNA. This is always important, but we spend a lot of time on that. And so take advantage of all the network and spend a lot of time understanding all this.
Okay, I'm going to come down the line and ask each one of you for your biggest surprise this year. Ed, I'm starting with you because you're right next to me.
I don't know that I have a big surprise in French tech this year, but I think that France's dominance in AI is not something that people would have foreseen 5 years ago, despite the understanding of the talent and the academic institutions. And I think that's going to be really impactful for French tech.
And get more headlines. It sounds like greater recognition.
Absolutely.
Okay. Frédéric, number one surprise.
That we are first country in Europe for AI since last year. And that we will keep the momentum because during the last summit for Impact AI and all that in France, there was huge investments that are announced, and I mentioned earlier that every week we have some new investments. And for next year, my prediction is that the French soccer team will be the third champion for the World Cup.
Fabrice, biggest surprise this year?
So in my world, we are building an AI agent for store employee, for people working in quick service restaurant or in hotel. The biggest surprise is not AI from a technology perspective, but the speed of adoption of AI by those people that have been underserved by technology. What I thought would take probably 5 years to happen in less than 3-4 months. It's insane.
So it's a rate of change observation.
The change of adoption is massive, and it's happening now.
Okay, Frédéric, you're exempt because you just gave us a sports prediction. Ed, Fabrice, one prediction before we wrap, just anything. Next 12 months.
We're going to get rid of our foolish, xenophobic, hateful tariffs.
Okay. From your lips to God's ears, as they say.
I like this one. I keep yours.
Yeah.
The best one.
That's a prediction or a hope?
A mix of both.
Okay. Fabrice, Frédéric, Ed, thank you so much for the conversation. Thank all of you for joining us today.